Right, in today's video from the Advanced ABAP series, we're going to look at the reduce operator. More specifically, we're going to look at three examples which we've pulled directly out of the ABAP online documentation. And that includes a simple sum example where we're going to iterate or loop through a bunch of numbers and add them together. And the next one is a string concatenation example, where we're going to start off with a base string and add a bunch of numbers where we'll move, as we reduce the numbers, we'll add to that string. So the string will sort of add each number to the end of it. And the final example will be a standard table reduction, where we'll sum the values from an array, which will be the most sort of real world example we'll deal with. I'm not going to go into too much detail on why I think the reduce operator is so brilliant, purely because I know once you start using it in your own projects, it'll speak for itself. As always, all the resources I use in this video will be linked in the description, and that includes the GitHub repo for all the examples. So before we get started with the first example, the simple sum, I'm going to go ahead and create an instance class. You could see the snippets here in the context menu. They've been generated by an extension I wrote specifically for VS Code, and it's called the Advanced ABAP Snippet Generator. And with it, you get a bunch of snippets that you can use to help speed up your development. Some of them include these different classes that you can get. So if you had to select one, like I'm going to do, it gives you an instance class and all the scaffolding you need to pretty much execute from the get-go. So that's really helpful. Let's go ahead and call this class reduce test, and let's add our start of selection, call our class reduce test, and let's go ahead and instantiate it with the create method, and we can use method chaining. So straight off our object, we can go ahead and run the code in the run method. So that's all ready to go. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this cl_demo_output class to chain together a bunch of outputs for all three examples, so we can see it all at once, which is really handy. So the first thing you need to do to get that going is you call the new static method, and once you've got that, you can go ahead and create your first section, which you would do by calling new section. And in that, you can add a little title, and we'll call this simple sum using reduce. Then once we have that going, we can go ahead and write out the actual output or solution that we're going to do, and you just slap on this display method after the fact, and that'll sort of sit at the end. So that's all fine. So let's go ahead and start with our reduce operator. What's the problem here? New section does not exist. Oh, it's sorry, not new section, it's next section. My apologies. So let's start with our reduce. We're then going to type it as an integer. And once we go into our reduce brackets, we can start the logic. For your first step, is to create an initial value using the init operator. And we can use, let's just call it S and give that a value of 0. Note that this has been dynamically allocated in here. We haven't declared this anywhere else in the class or the report. It's all done in here, and you'll see this further on when we work on the table reduction as well. So we've got our initial value going there. Then we're going to put in our for logic, and there we're going to say for iterator equals. We'll start off at 1, and we're going to run this until I is greater than 10. So we're just going to run all this reduce statement until this iterator hits 10. And while we're doing that, we're going to use the next keyword here. And here is where we're actually going to do the sum. So we're going to take S, which we've declared over here, and we're going to say, just like you would in standard ABAP, S equals S plus, and we're going to put in our iterator. So all we're doing here is saying, well, in this section, we're saying use this keyword to say S equals S plus I, and it's going to run through that until we reach the end. And it's as straightforward as that. So let's go ahead and save and see what this basic example looks like. In VS Code, you can click on Activate up here, or you can press Alt-Shift-F3. And I'll put a link to my setup video for ABAP in VS Code, but you need to run through that to make sure you have all of the relevant extensions. And once you do, you can that'll be linked in the description, and I'll try to get it on the top of the screen as well. But once you have that, or once you have all those extensions installed, you should just be able to press F5, which should open up the GUI. Normally you would run your unit tests directly in here, but we just want to see the GUI output at this point, so we're not going to worry about that now. And let's go ahead and execute, and there you go. There's your sum of, I think, 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 all the way up. Should give you 55. So that's fantastic. So now we can move straight on to the string concatenation example. And we're going to just prepare our next section for the demo output class. And we'll do that by calling the next section here. Give it a title of string concatenation. Whoops, concatenation using reduce. And we're going to call the write statement here. And we can join that right up to the display there. Brilliant. So we're going to go ahead and again start off with our reduce statement, except now we're going to type this as a string, and we're going to open that up. So let's add in our initial value, and let's call it string in this case, and we'll give that a value, or actually no, let's call it, just for the sake of not confusing everyone, let's call it text. And add in our text pipes here, and let's say countdown, colon there. So that should be fine. So we'll start our string here just like we did, or actually no, it's got nothing to do with that. The string that we're going to build on is going to start with that, and we're going to add to 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And to do that, we're going to use, we're going to use the for again. So for iterator, and we're going to start this time at 10, which is very important. Then we're going to slot in the then keyword and add a bit of logic here that says every time we roll over this for statement, -1 from the iterator till we get, and obviously until I is equal to 0. Pretty straightforward, self-explanatory. For I equals 10, every time we roll through, reduce it until I equals 0. So let's just pop that back there. Then we get on again to the next statement here, and we're going to say text. Again, we've created it up here and dynamically typed it and allocated it there. And that's going to equal text, ampersand, ampersand. And again, we're going to use our text pipes here, and we're going to add in the iterator. And again, that's it. So we've got, we're going to reduce our string type here. We've started off with this value, the string. We're going to use the for loop to run through everything we need to do, starting off at 10, then -1 every single time we roll over until I equals 0. And the next says take this text and add on the iterator. So it should say text, it should say countdown 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and obviously we've got our space here, which is important. So we can go ahead and save, click on the activate button at the top here, and if I press F5 again, we can run through it in the GUI. And let's execute. There you go. So you can do this with any string, any column. It doesn't have to be this. As long as you find whatever value or column you want to run through, which will make sense now in the next example, you can concatenate any set of columns together or strings, which could be incredibly useful if you're working between tables and you're trying to build a sort of summary of things for the user. Then the final example, which is the more sort of real world example that we've got here, is we're going to build a table, and we're going to fill that table with the numbers 1 to 10, and we're going to do the same thing that we did here, except we're going to use the table and run through it to build up that summary. You can do that sort of in this display type of thing, or you can do it and reduce it into a specific value, which I'll show you now. But first, let's just get the table going. So let's say data local table test, and that'll be type table. Let's just do table of I. And it's very important to specify the key, because when you eventually run through slightly more complex versions of this reduce statement, the key will play a very, very important role. So it's always best practice anyway to deal with your key as soon as you declare something in any case. So just be aware this key plays an important role in any and all reduce statements that involve a table. So now that we've typed that, let's fill it with some values. And we've already got the type, so we can get on with that. And let's again use our friendly for statement. Let's just say j equals 1, and while j, let's just say less than or equal to 10. Oops. While j less than or equal to 10, add j. So that should give us a table. And we'll test it first before we create the reduce statement. So again, we're going to add our third and final section for display purposes section. And we're going to call this table reduction using reduce. And we're going to go ahead and write out. For now, we're going to just write out the local table to see if we can actually see it. And then we'll add another section with the solution as well, just so you can see it all in front of you. TEST. Lovely. Let's go ahead and activate. What have I done? Where's J? Whoops, got to add your space there. That's fine. Try and activate again. Get rid of that. Lovely, activated. F5. Execute. There we are. So here is our table, and we're going to add a new section under here, where we're going to sum these up, and it should equal 55. So let's give it a shot. Right, so again, next and final section, rather. We will, okay, we won't give it a title, that's fine. And right, add our bracket there. All right, so you should be getting the idea now as we go along. Just do this, just so no. Let's just do it properly because I've got to put this in the Git repo anyway. Table reduction using reduce. Table example. Let's do that so it's very clear. And table reduction using reduce. There we go. So now that's clear. So you should be pretty close to guessing what I'm going to do next. I'm going to use the I type or integer type again. I'm going to get my initial value, and let's call it x equals 0. And now, just like we did in the first example, I'm going to say for, but in this case, I'm going to use a work area or local structure test. And I'm going to do that in local table test. And what's brilliant here is this, again, is dynamically typed and allocated based on this. So it's all done within this reduce statement. I haven't declared this anywhere else. It's done on the fly as you go, just like inline declarations, which is very handy to just keep things very compact and small if you're just throwing a single reduce statement in a method and building the rest of your code around that. So for this work area in our table that we're working with, you guessed it, next, and x equals x plus ls test. And normally, well, the reason we're using ls test is because we've only got one column, but if you've got more, if let's say you've got 10 columns and your value is sitting in the 10th column, you would just choose it like this, column 10. And so you would just call your column and it'll know which one to sum. So we don't have to do that now, but just so you know, more than one column, you just add it on there. So again, it's as easy as that. So the reduce statement with typed as an integer, we have an initial value dynamically allocated and typed, starting at 0, running our for statement, but in this case, we're calling it dynamically allocated and typed work area coming from our table and calling our next statement to do the sum or concatenation, whatever you are pulling from that particular column or value, x equals x plus, let's test whatever that value is as you run through. We're going to display this and it's going to work, but you could also do something like this, local value sum, and get your sum value like this, and that would equal reduce. So you could do exactly the same thing with inline declarations or a method call or whatever the case may be. It will still work. So for now, we're just purely displaying the outputted value, and let's see if it works. So again, activate. Everything looks good. F5. Open up the GUI. And there you go. There's the table we had, and there's the table we got. I mean, there's the summed value that we've got. It's as straightforward as that. So you can see the reduce statement is something that I know a lot of developers are really underusing. It really it just helps tidy things up. It's brilliant for just slotting into a utility class and just throwing values at it, getting out a sum, and building something like a summary table, which it could be built really quickly and really efficiently. This syntax can be a bit daunting at first to understand, but again, once you go through it and you realize what each line does, you can, and I'll put some more links down in the description, but you can expand this quite a bit and nest certain things inside. The string stuff is obviously pretty straightforward, but once you start getting into the table reduction and working through different columns, you can really build something robust, but more importantly, easy to read, easy to work with, and the syntax is sort of simple and straightforward. So don't let this sort of be daunting. Just take it step by step, and I really recommend you try it out and see what it's worth. As always, everything again will be put in the description, all the links. If you have any questions, or if you'd like me to go through anything in any more detail, or if you have any questions on the setup I've got in VS Code, let me know down in the comments. And again, if you like the video, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. And as always, thanks for watching.